All right, you guys recording, right, David? All right, well, welcome to Hacking Homework. Thank you for joining us today. If you wouldn't mind, please mute yourself if you haven't already done so. That way, background noises don't get distracting for whoever's sharing. If you have any questions, feel free to just throw them out in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll be happy to respond to things as they come up. So we just wanted to present today ways of making homework more meaningful for your kids and more meaningful for you, so that you feel like you're getting reasonable information back from it, and it's not just kind of this exercise that you feel forced to do or pressured to do. So I'm David FitzSimons. I've taught math for 10 years at City Universe Charter School. I have a little makerspace in the back of my classroom, and I love just in general integrating tech into what I do and trying to find ways to make assignments more meaningful for kids so that they're not just rote pencil and paper, regurgitate what you heard, and let's move on kind of stuff, and really making it actual education.
I'm Christine Donnelly. I've taught for 8 years in a couple different counties, and I recently have tried to jump on the bandwagon with Canvas and using Canvas for different assignments, so I'm really excited to look at homework in terms of Canvas today.
Hi, I'm David Dutrow. I've been teaching at St. Joe for 21 years, and I've become a huge tech advocate so long as it provides meaningful assessment. And this summer, I've become Flipgrid certified, and I'm Flipgrid community builder. Can't wait to share that with you guys today.
Hi, I'm Schultheis. I've been teaching at Mount St. Joe for 14 years. I, like David, am always looking for ways to enhance my students' learning, to create assessments that are meaningful, and using technology in any way to enhance that is something I'm always striving to do. I recently became Google certified level 1 and level 2, and so I'm looking for ways to integrate that into my classroom as well.
So here's our agenda for today. We just did the introductions. We have a little icebreaker. David's going to share a little bit about some research about homework that provides a little bit of our rationale for why we want to do this. What is it that makes us feel like homework needs to be changed up? We'll look at several different ways that you can do that, tools available to you. So Flipgrid, Recap, Edpuzzle, Canvas, and Google Expeditions. If you're familiar with any of those, you know how powerful they can be. And if not, we'll give you everything that you need to know to get started using them. And then we'll have some breakout rooms so that you guys can start generating some ideas for how you might want to use these and problem solve any challenges that you can see coming up. And then we'll have some time for some reflections and closing at the end. So we've got a packed slate for you, but we really feel good about it, and we think you're going to enjoy it.
Okay, so thank you for those of you who filled out the survey. As you can see here, as a cohort, the data shows that we have varied opinions about homework in terms of how many nights a week we actually give homework, and then in part due to that, how effective you think it is. So there's probably some correlation there, but you can see that we're pretty all over the grid with both of those questions that we asked, which is great to bring different perspectives to the table today. So some reasons, that third question we talked about, some of the reasons you guys talked about giving homework in the first place ranged from practice and reinforcement all the way to it's mandated and parents are asking for it. So hopefully today we can kind of look into that a little bit more. So in the chat, just to get us started, I want to kind of see how you feel. So in 1 to 2 words, complete this sentence. So homework is. What do you all think about when you think homework is? Just 1 to 2 words. Okay, so yeah, so more practice, we have that a lot. It's redundant, more work. A lot of these kind of have negative connotations to them. Some are good. Some are okay. So like we see that it's essential. There's room for enrichment if you use it. It can be purposeful. So, and Kelly says unnecessary from a parent perspective. So we do have different perspectives, whether you're a student or a parent or a teacher. So we want to kind of take this time today to really look at different ways to make homework more engaging so that maybe some of our feelings and actions towards homework become more positive. So to start us off, David is going to share some brief research that we have done.
Okay, as many of you will remember, last semester in Dr. Roby's class, pretty much the same group, minus Ed, unfortunately, did a homework study. And we wanted to expand on that and actually look at some solutions, perhaps, for some of the research that we did. So I picked out these 3 findings that you might remember from our presentation last semester. And as you can see, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to homework. Teachers and students have very different perceptions of what types of homework are helpful. As Tim just said in his answer, homework's unreliable. It's somewhat of a crapshoot at times. But homework still seems to be very effective when completed at home, and studies have shown a positive correlation between doing homework and achievement. And so we want to look at ways we can still assign and like receive homework from students, but make it a bit more meaningful. That's our point today. So for instance, we've all been in this spot. I think it was 75% of us said that our homework was somewhat or hardly effective, and it's for reasons like this. A lot of us give the critical reading questions at the end of a story. We give worksheets that have been around since 1926. And we can't expect students to be excited or engaged with that. So fortunately, technology gives us quite a few options that we can use to vary our assignments and get a little bit more meaning from them. So I'm going to talk about Flipgrid. For those of you that follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen me absolutely gushing about Flipgrid. This is my new favorite obsession. Began using it in the 4th quarter last year, and I see a lot of really excellent uses for it. So I have this quote from Joyce Valenza. She's the director of the Masters of Information program at Rutgers University. She is discussing Flipgrid and, by tangential relation, recap, which Ed's going to talk about next. And she says the authenticity of video and voice really helps build community and relationships. And I love those 3 words I underlined, because those are not words you would usually relate to homework: authenticity, community, relationships. And so we have a new way of expanding the classroom walls and really tearing down some barriers. So why Flipgrid? It champions student voice. You use very easy to use video responses. It works on any device. Students don't have to have a specific platform like an iPad or a Chromebook. They can use their phone, a desktop. You can quickly meet with them after school or find some way for them to create their videos. So it's not inhibitive. It's not prohibitive, rather. iOS and Android apps are available for both Flipgrid and Recap. You don't need to log in. Students are just told where to go and create their videos. They don't need to remember passwords and usernames. It is a place where a safe space for every student is created, and that's very important to me. Limitless uses, only limited by your creativity. And in my breakout room a little later on, we'll discuss some of those uses. And there is an upgrade feature that you can kind of apply for, well, pay for, but you can get even more features. I find that the free one is still rather excellent. So how do you use Flipgrid? Flipgrid, to me, has multiple purposes. First of all, it gets everyone in the room talking. It's a bit more personal, and you actually get to see the students for who they are. For me, it's also a chance to multitask and bring in some digital citizenship. As you can see, when you create a grid, you want to relate grids to sort of classes. It's a larger component. When you set it up, you can password protect it, so only certain people can get in, or you can open this up to everyone, which expands the classroom even further. You can moderate your responses. If you want to set expectations and really get your students involved in how they should be conducting themselves online, how to get the most out of online learning, this might be an approach you could use at the beginning until they become more familiar with it. And so, all of these settings are up to you, and you can kind of change them as you go. Now, once you have a grid, like your classes, you want to create topics. Topics are the questions you're going to ask the students. Now, these are essentially, one-line things. I like using them for effective and metacognitive questions to really get students thinking about their feelings on a subject and what worked for them or what didn't. You could use it for cognitive, but again, in my experience, I'm trying to get away from those Googleable answers. I want them to express themselves without just giving me a rote, as David said, answer to something. Now, you can share this via URL. You can get an embed code, so if you have your own website or something like Christine's going to talk about later, Canvas, you can embed it right into that. You can make a QR code that you could splash up on a bulletin board or a wall. It links with Facebook, Twitter, and Google Classroom, so seamless integration. It makes this very easy to use. And it's just a really excellent tool. Now, you can respond to the students can respond to each other, assuming you've upgraded. But every student can view every other student's work, and you can prompt discussions the next day in class with it. It really does give you quite a few options. This right here is what your finalized grid will look like. You'll see the students, some hamming it up, personality. This kid wants to talk and pretend he's Optimus Prime. I'm okay with that. I want them to feel comfortable doing this because I tend to get better answers when they are comfortable. And so you can do all of this and ask questions either in text. You can record your own video. You can upload YouTube videos to be your questions for Flipgrid. And that has a lot of flipped classroom applications. They can watch a video first and respond to it. And so you can do a little bit of everything with this. And it works for every single class. For English, it's simple: reading responses, recitation of poems. But a lot of times the math teachers in my school come to me and say, okay, there's not a lot for me in technology. What can I do? Well, you can have students kind of record their responses. How would they critique someone's handling of a math problem? How would they talk through how they completed a math problem? It really takes the learning to another level. So this is the bare bones. There is a shared folder with lots of resources we're going to give you at the end of our presentation. And now Ed's going to kind of piggyback on this with a tool called Let's Recap.
So thanks, Dave. I wanted to continue with a look at video responses with Recap. And Recap really starts with this fundamental statement that I wanted to bring along with it, and that is curiosity is the engine of achievement. Curiosity is really at the heart of Recap. So why use Recap? What is it? Well, much like for Flipgrid, it's a way for students to respond in video form. And I won't go into it too much because in a lot of ways it's identical to Flipgrid. Students can respond, they can reflect, all the same way they do with Flipgrid. The one big difference is they're not allowed to see or comment on other people's videos. So you as the teacher are the only one that can see the videos that the students upload. So the big question then I'm sure you're asking is, why would I use this instead of Flipgrid if they're the same thing? Well, the reason for it is because an additional element that they add called journeys. The journeys are really what make Recap this application of curiosity. And it all starts with a question. So what you do as the teacher is you introduce a large subject, a broad subject to the students. In this case, maybe it's about priesthood in the Catholic Church. The students then pose questions that you, the teacher, see and can share with the other students. So they may ask questions, you ask them, what would you like to know about priesthood in the Catholic Church? Well, in this case, I chose one student's question, why can't women be priests in the Catholic Church? And you as the teacher say, well, that's a great question, right? I don't want to give you the answer to it, so what do? You create a journey. And a journey really is a method for an inquiry-based study for the students based on the questions that they're asking. So in this case, I created, or actually I borrowed somebody's journey because there are hundreds of journeys that other teachers have made in math and science and in history and yes, even in religion. I took this teacher's journey and crafted it for my own students. So it starts with that fundamental question. It gives them steps to help them investigate it. But really what it comes down to is the students have to seek out their own answers. And this can be done either in class as an activity, or it can be done over the course of many classes and homework. So it's not just about video responses, it's about getting students to be curious about a subject and then investigate that subject. So Flipgrid and recap. So the question that David is going to pose to you, and what we'd like you to do is answer it in the chat window again. David?
Okay, so our quick question is, using those kind of qualities of authenticity, community, and curiosity, what is a positive outcome you can envision for your own classroom using one of these video response models? Okay, motivation, good. Deeper level thinking, that's a good one. Self-accountability.
Yeah, the idea that students would actually get excited about homework is pretty cool too.
Yeah, exactly. There's some great answers. All right, so yeah, keep those in mind because you're gonna have a chance to explore all of these tools after we finish. And I think a lot of these would really fit into the way we teach. So next up we've got David.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Edpuzzle. We've used this a couple times if you've been through all the classes with our cohort, but I'm just going to go kind of deeper into it. I use it and I love it, and if you haven't really actually tried it in your classroom, I think it's worth trying. So why do it? If you're somebody who is interested in using videos in your class or doing a flipped classroom kind of thing or any of those kinds of things, it can take a lot of work to get that up and running. So with Edpuzzle, you have the whole YouTube library, and they also have a connection with Vimeo if there's things that are on Vimeo that are on YouTube. So you can save time on the content generation part of it and just tailor it to your class with comments or with questions. If it's something that appeals to you, you can have that aspect of it being automatically graded, but it's also possible to use it without worrying about grading the videos and just throw them out there as a way to give kids homework where they're engaged, where they have some questions to answer or some things to think about, but not grades per se. You can pretty easily slide it into anything you already do. If you're using Google Classroom, you can do that. If you are using Canvas, if you're in Howard County, there's a way to insert it into your Canvas quizzes that Christine's going to talk a little bit about. Put it right up in your blog and embed it in there, throw it out on social media. There's all kinds of ways to do it. And there are apps for students who have devices but maybe don't have a full-blown computer at home. They can still do it. So then the thing that comes up is, yeah, but in terms of teaching, why would I want to do it as a teacher? Like, all those things are great, but they're not really about teaching. So for me, the fact that it gives students immediate feedback, it reaches out to those visual and auditory learners that really are not typically served by traditional homework where you're just putting a pencil to paper. They don't have anybody to interact with. There's not typically a strong visual component to homework. There's clearly not an auditory component if they're just sitting there reading or writing. It creates educational screen time, which to me is one of those things where we know kids are using their screens and they're using them a lot. I think carving out a slice of that that's definitely going to be educational is a good thing. Students that have handwriting difficulties, I know I have a couple of those in my class. Some of them have IEPs, some of them don't. But either way, they just really struggle with handwriting. It's a bear for them, and it makes written assignments difficult. So something like this makes it so that you just don't even have to worry about that handwriting piece of it. And in the same sort of vein, it saves paper. You're not chasing down this paper and that paper. You can easily see who's done it and who hasn't. There's a lot less just kind of stuff that has to go out of your classroom and come back in and be organized, or however you choose to handle homework. So when you load it up, you'll see a screen that looks like this. You can pick any video you want. You can search up any video that's posted up on YouTube and start to work with it. And when you do that, you'll go through 4 stages. So first you'll crop it. So if you have a long video, but you really only want like a 1.5-minute segment of it, you can arrange that so that your kids only see what they need to see and they don't kind of lose interest. You can add a voiceover if there's something that's not clear, if it's in a foreign language, whatever the case might be. You can also add little notes or audio comments. And what that'll actually do is pause the video so that your kids get a chance to process that little additional comment, and then it'll resume the video. And the same thing with the quiz questions that you can add. It'll pause the video for your students so that they have time to actually answer the question, and they're not trying to run around answering the question while the video is still going and all of those kinds of issues. So it's a really, really well put together system. Once you're done, you can share it. So first of all, you can set up a class in Edpuzzle and integrate that with Google Classroom if you choose to. You can prevent your kids from skipping ahead in the video if you want to make sure that they watch the whole thing before they answer the question. If you don't want to set up a class, or if you want to do something like share it with the parents or share it with your colleagues, you can get a link and just share it out that way on social media or through email, or you can get this embed code, and you'll copy that and you can slide that right into a blog, into Canvas, into anything like that that has an HTML editor, and it'll embed the video right in what you're looking at so that there's no separate windows required or anything like that. It's all on the same screen. If you do put it in Google Classroom, you'll have on the top, you can see kind of the Edpuzzle interface. It'll show you what's due soon, what's upcoming. You can add due dates if you want to. You can see how much of your class has completed it. And then the Google Classroom interface down below, where you can see who's done it, who hasn't done it. You can put a comment up there. If there's additional instructions you want to give to your class, you can let them respond. All those great kind of features of Google Classroom. And then here we've got some additional resources for you. We didn't have a ton of time today, so if you want more information about how to integrate it with Google Classroom or out there, this is going to be in that share folder. Edpuzzle also has its own gradebook. If you want to get access to that, it costs money, but if you're willing to run a PD at your school and show other teachers how to use Edpuzzle, you can tweet out a picture of you doing that, and they'll give you access to the gradebook feature for free. So it's pretty cool to know if that's something you're interested in. It's optional. You get all the other features of the site without having to do that, but that's just another thing to keep in mind. Question to you, to put your responses out there in the chat, is what advantage of using video homework is most relevant to you? There's a lot of benefits. What speaks to you about this? Paperless. Yeah, I love that one.
Definitely engagement.
Yep.
Yeah.
Katie, great. Yeah, for your students especially, no handwriting, it really does give a lot of other options.
Yeah, and just the fact that they would be thinking about things outside of class. Thinking being the key word, at least for me. I don't know how you felt about it, but that they're actually thinking about things outside of class.
Mm-hmm.
Organized is a good one too, Mary. It's kind of all in one place.
And flexibility, Sarah, we can't say enough about that. I mean, that's something we all have to really focus on every day. That's a great one.
Yeah, so one of the things that Megan said was being able to model some tasks that they might still struggle with. I think that's really cool. One of the things that's in the resources is a coach who uses this to show videos of how you should be starting your sprint, and then kids can see that and practice it and those kinds of things. And that way you can do those physical kinds of activities at home without the coach having to be there. Yeah, these are awesome. So we're going to move on to Christine, who's going to talk a little bit about Canvas.
Okay, so Canvas, I'm just going to do a short intro because I know not all of us are Howard County and don't all use this, but thank you for those of you who are going to pay attention anyway. But if you are in Howard County, you know that Canvas is something that they keep pushing more and more. Last year, we had to use gradebook, announcements, calendar. This year, they actually are going to set the standard that we need to use it for learning. They don't necessarily dictate exactly what that means. So I just wanted to show you kind of how you might be able to use it as homework, since that's our focus, but it can certainly be done in class. Like Nina was asking in the chat, like if your students don't have the ability to do this at home. So with it being in this third year, there's going to be some mandates. So I was just curious kind of in the chat, how do you feel when something is typically mandated to you?
I think we can all get behind it.
Yeah, so lots of negative feelings.
Not having a voice. That's great.
Right. So Overwhelmed is a good one, Megan. That's kind of how I feel, like, oh my gosh, as a teacher, we have all this stuff to do, and now you're kind of changing the one thing I feel confident about is making a worksheet and giving it to them for homework. So I just wanted to kind of touch base on that, because I'm hoping that some of you will see this and think, oh, it's not that bad, if when your principal tells you, okay, we need to kind of change how we're using this. So, sorry. So there's some pros. There's immediate feedback to students, which we've mentioned as research shows that's really crucial for kids' engagement and learning and growth. It can go directly in your grade book if you choose it to, if you grade it. Everybody has different feelings about homework and policies. You can add helpful links. So me as a math teacher, I really like having a question and then I insert a link. So if you don't know how to solve this equation, here, go to this website. It can help you right now at home when you're struggling. There's a speed grader, which makes it easier for teachers to look at and grade if there's any open-ended questions. The assignments can take many forms. And as Steve wrote in for one of the other questions, kids can't lose it. It's online. There's no excuse of, oh, I left my homework folder in my locker, which is very real. So when you actually log on to Canvas, it's called quizzes. I just wanted to mention that because I tend to think of quizzes as a summative assessment, but this is just how Canvas categorizes it. You can change how you grade it or what it looks like in terms of that kind of thing. So there's lots of different types of examples here. You can do multiple choice questions, fill in the blank. You can do free response or essay type questions. There's lots of variety, and it doesn't necessarily have to start. These are ones that I've typed out and created, but it doesn't have to start like this. Like if you have a worksheet that you love and it just seems overwhelming, you can literally take pictures of your worksheet and embed it into Canvas, so that way you don't necessarily have that feeling of, I have to start from scratch. So there's other ones like multiple drop downs, there's multiple answers, or as we who give Park, the select all type questions. So there's lots of options for every type of teacher. Math and science teachers, I know one of my personal pet peeves is when you have to type in a regular text form and you can't do some of the symbols, but it has a formula feature for science and math people as well. So not only are there options on the types of questions, but there are also options when you are creating the quiz to change how it looks. So from directions to where it goes in the grade book, it doesn't have to be homework. It can go, these are my different categories. You can give them a time limit, allow multiple attempts, kind of what we've seen in our Moodle class, require an access code. I usually only use that when it's in class assessment. And then you can assign it to any groups that you want. So it can be a certain class, it can be a certain, like I have 2 different contents, or you can just assign it to one student who, for whatever reason, they get a second chance that nobody else does in this case. And just to show you real quickly, so here's what I'm talking about. If you have an equation, kids can click on this link and go from there. And lastly, just to kind of show you what David, well, both Davids were talking about, this HTML editor is where you can upload different things to embed so that you can use Flipgrid, or you can use Edpuzzle and really kind of boost this Canvas thing that they are mandating, which we all hate that word. But it does have a lot of positive features, and you can start easy. You can start at an entry level. You don't have to make it this fabulous new thing. So I too have some resources for anybody that I'll put in the Google folder. So like I said, I just wanted a brief overview because I know this doesn't apply to half of you, but I appreciate you letting me talk about this anyway. So now we're going to go to Ed for our last one. Ed, you're muted.
Thanks, Christine. Sorry about that. Forgot the mute button there. The last one that I want to talk about briefly with you is Google Expeditions. And the way that I look at this is, a 21st century, magic school bus. I understand as I go through this that, it's going to be difficult for a lot of us to say, well, my students don't have the ability to have that, or my school doesn't have this. The goal is to move to the integration of technology with what we're doing to find uses for it. And Google Expeditions is one of those things that has just started that really offers some benefits for us as teachers and for students. So I wanted to share those with you. The way I look at it is the world's a beautiful place, and there's no way when we're exploring it that we can be bored. And that's what Google Expeditions brings to us. If I was introducing Vatican City or St. Peter's Basilica, yeah, I could show them a picture, or they could open up their textbook and see it, or I might even be able to show them a video of it. But why do that when they can explore it virtually? And that's what Google Expeditions is all about. It gives you the opportunity to explore locations and places virtually, from taking a tour from the inside of the lungs to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Google Expeditions is all about immersing you and your students in places that they'd never be able to go. So what do you need? Well, yes, if you want the full immersive experience, you're going to need a device with some sort of VR viewer with it, and you can see that in the picture down below. There's also an opportunity for any device to be used with Google Expeditions in a 2D method, and you can see that on the iPad in the picture below. So Google gives a number of opportunities and uses, not just the VR 3D experience, but also the exploratory method on the iPad. So how could teachers use it as homework or in class? Well, the easiest way would be to assign a journey like you see here for the students to take. It comes complete with information about specific places. There are over 600 self-guided tours available on Google Expeditions, and you can assign any of them for your students to take. It also includes questions that you can ask them about those journeys. Really, the options are limitless when it comes to using this device, whether in the classroom or as a potential homework assignment. So the last question that I wanted to ask was really just a specific one for you, but my question for it was, if you were using Google Expeditions, where's the first place that you would take your class? Egypt, Jamestown.
Let's see, people.
They do have areas historically, so you're not just limited to today. There are ones for historical slideshows, and it's not just places. Again, I talked about, they've got one for the Milky Way, underwater, inside the heart. So it's not just specific places, but these are all great ideas to be able to send your students, to give them immersive experience beyond using the textbook. So wonderful ideas. I really appreciate that. So now that we've shown you these different tools, we're going to set you up in your breakout sessions, and the leaders will help you through that. They'll give you the links for them as well. An opportunity to share and to dialogue about the uses of these tools. So we thank you for your participation.
Still waiting for a couple groups.
I think we're all good. Looks like there's
Uh-huh.
24. Yep.
Okay. All right. So you see here the bit.ly address for our Hacking Homework shared folder. We'll post that link in the chat so you have easy access to it. And everyone can see all the documents. So even if you weren't in the session that you might have questions about, feel free to visit all the folders and take what you will from them.
All right, so thanks everybody for joining us for this. We have a little evaluation to help us improve for next time, and then we also have an optional thing, but we'd love for you to do it. If you want to add a response to a Flipgrid link that David created, so you can try that out from the student side, you can be entered to win a little Dunkin' Donut gift card as a token of our appreciation. And so the link is down there for that too. And those links are also in the share folder if you need that. And then the drawing will be at the start of the next time we all meet together.
Trey,
David.
if you win, we'll make sure to get it to you.
Thanks again for everyone's participation. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, great day, guys. Thank you.
Hope this helped out.
All right, thanks, Team 3. So we can stop the recording. Team 4.